this is, everyone in this room will know this picture. This is Monalisa by Leonardo da Vinci. It was created almost, well, 500 years ago. It's an oil painting. It's survived for all that time. It's warped, it's cracked, it's been repaired. It's lived through 2 world wars. It spent some time in Napoleon's bedroom. And it is now located in the Louvre in Paris as their jewel in the crown. Another piece of work which is not quite so well known, but it's a lovely piece, is a robot called the Sensor. And this is one of the very first computer-controlled robotic installations created by an artist called Edward Inasovitz, and it was created in 1970s, where it was shown for about 4 years in the Netherlands. And it was very, very popular, and it was a sort of huge thing. It was 4 meters tall, and it would respond to sound. So if you clapped, it would sort of come over and sort of interact with you. It was a very loved piece. Thought to be destroyed. But actually, it still survives in some form. The electronics have been given away a long time ago, and the sort of the physical form of it has been welded together outside a building in Eindhoven, I think. So these 2 examples I'm sort of using as an example of art preservation. It's sort of, given the right materials and the right environment and a lot of luck, art can survive for a very long period of time. I mean, these cave paintings, they're estimated to be 40,000 years old. They still look fresh, and this is 1,000 times older than the existence of the Sensor. Actually 10,000 times, because it was only active for 4 years. So for artists working in non-traditional mediums, especially digital artists like myself, preservation is a really important kind of area for discussion, because we're kind of nowhere with it. It's really difficult. If you write a piece of code for, something like Microsoft Word or something, a big complex program, if it runs for like 5 years or so, without modification, without updates, that's considered pretty good code. But the question I sort of find myself asking as a sort of digital artist is it possible to write code that will still be runnable in 50, 500, even 5,000 years? This is kind of the kind of issue that I'm having to deal with as a digital artist, that sort of isn't kind of, sort of worried about in terms of software development and all the rest of it. There are, you cannot rely on the hardware and software manufacturing industry to want to create products that will last for more than a couple of years. Apple only survives as the biggest company in the planet because the people who buy Apple products have to keep upgrading. They're not very interested in making a phone that would last you for your whole life. They would quickly disappear. So as part of my kind of art practice, I find myself sort of dealing with the transience of code. But also of hardware. So, I mean, for instance, this is a piece that I did a few years ago called Shadows of Light, and you stand in front of it, and nothing happens, which kind of annoys a lot of people. But I'm quite interested in the idea of sort of slow interaction. And so if you stand still, your outline will slowly become visible, and the longer you stand there, the more sort of drippy the paint gets. So it's like a sort of stencil with paint. But this relies on like a Microsoft Connect, and I know that in 10 years, 15 years, whatever, I won't be able to buy a Microsoft Connect. You know, so it's not just the software that's part of the problem, it's the hardware too. And I don't just work with that software and hardware, we're robotics too. And robotic motors have a very high failure rate. So here I am developing a robot project. So it's a face-touching robot because I'm sort of exploring the sort of intimacy and the reaction of being touched by code. But this, and I've shown sort of variations of this robot in many places, and the motors wear out and they have to be replaced and all the rest of it. So it's a very difficult proposition to sort of have a robotic artwork that lasts for a very long time. And if those things kind of weren't sort of transient enough, I also do a lot of work with video projection, video mapping, and it gets to the point where everything is completely transitory. It's just like, I just feel like nothing exists. Code is just merely sort of little magnetic imprints on a hard drive platter. You know, the light from the projector can just be sort of blocked off and just, and I mean, this whole installation was a performance was cardboard boxes. So during the performance, I sort of pushed them over and to sort of highlight the temporal kind of side of things. So all of this technology and all of this time and effort and all the expense of the equipment and all the rest of it, and it has infinitely less kind of sustainability than a child's picture on a piece of paper. This is slightly depressing. And I could probably sort of make my life considerably easier by embracing the temporal nature of digital art and just living for the moment and creating things and then they disappear. And I mean, huge swathes of digital art have been and gone, and you've never seen them. Early internet art is very difficult to preserve and very difficult to show. If you write a piece of art which depends on Twitter 2 years ago, of course it won't run now. You know, it's a third-party thing that's outside of your control. So it's a question of sort of preserving culture. And I think, I mean, it won't surprise you to know that there are lots of big sort of institutions globally sort of looking into the problem of digital preservation in terms of data storage and hardware storage and this kind of thing. But they're really kind of generalized approaches and sort of centralized. So you end up with big archives of things. And this isn't necessarily a very useful approach for digital artworks because they tend to be quite specific in nature, cobbled together from various other things and just really hanging together by a thread. And so we have to sort of kind of come up with a way of sort of preserving these things. And for my own part, I think this sort of partly has come from the artists themselves. There are various ways of sort of preserving digital things which are sort of well-trodden. For instance, writing software that can be easily emulated. If any of you know the sort of emulation scene, you know, you can on any sort of computer now, you can run old Sinclair computers, and you can run old games consoles, and you can run, you know, even early versions of Windows and things like this. People love to make this kind of old technology work on the current technology. And this is kind of a useful side effect of this is that if you base your project on something which is easily emulatable, hopefully somebody at some point is going to write an emulator for it. So it might be a bit contentious, but I don't use Macs, I don't use any Apple products, because if you've ever tried to emulate a Mac, it is possible. They're called Hackintoshes. But it's really difficult. It's really like you have to get just the exact kind of hardware. And I use Windows because Windows is the most pirated software in the world. So for me to be able to sort of go, if I write it on Windows 7, Windows 8, whatever, at some point in the future, it's probably still going to exist on a BitTorrent somewhere or in an archive somewhere. And people do write Windows emulators. I mean, they're very easy to use straight out of the box. So I choose this as a sort of basis to hopefully preserve the art. As I mentioned with the hardware, if you use a Kinect, at some point you won't be able to get a Kinect anymore. So I don't want that artwork to die, so I have to sort of, it's called abstracting the hardware, where you just say, okay, it's not a Kinect anymore, it's a camera, and it films in depth, and it films with these specifications, and you sort of document the specifications. When the Kinect 2 comes along, as it has, then you can take the data from that and retro downgrade it to be what the artwork expects. Same with Kinect 3 or whatever comes next. And this does require a hideous amount of documentation, which is very, very boring, but unfortunately very necessary if you want things to be understood further on. And of course, this does sort of touch into the sort of open source and kind of side where you need to make all assets available. If anything is kind of closed off or unknown or needs sort of complete rewriting and stuff, you're drastically reducing the possibility that your work will be kind of seen in the future. So I've been working on developing software because I'm, as well as sort of being a sort of artist, I'm sort of old programmer. I've been sort of programming since early 80s, which is a long, long time. And I write tools for my own art practice. They're the tools that I need. They're the tools that I want. But I release them for money, of course. It's arts funding. And the idea being is especially, I mean, this one was called Painting with Light, and it's, if you've seen video mapping, where you're projecting on buildings and this kind of thing, it's quite a complicated process, and I love the medium. I love working with video mapping and video projection, and I met lots of artists who were like, we want to use that technology, but the software that's out there, of which there are many fantastic and very powerful packages, are not designed for the layperson to use. It's designed for lighting directors and VJs and this sort of thing. So I wrote a completely standalone little video mapping program. It's more like a sort of paint package, and I see this as a sort of disruptive software package because I very much want anyone who wants to be able to use technology to be able to use it. And if they can't use software, then it's the fault of the software. The software needs to be usable and needs to be clear about, to let people get into it. They're not stupid people. It's often badly designed software. Not saying this is very well designed, but I'm giving it a go. I run workshops and stuff, and I'm trying to sort of put this technology into the hands of artists and see what they can do with it, rather than just sort of big advertising companies. And I think it's kind of important to sort of embody these ideas within software. I mean, I'm not one of these people who thinks that everyone should code. There might be an audible sigh of relief in the room. Sort of. Coding is weird, and it appeals to people with a certain brain. And I don't think everyone should do it. But the people who are good at it and the people who pride themselves in it should be making the solutions for everyone else. So this is another piece of software I'm writing at the moment. It's not out yet. but it's what I create all my art in now, and it's trying to be a sort of it's something that's emulatable. It's something where all the specifications and all the rest of it are open. I want to release this for my own use, but also for other people, so their art as well can sort of carry on. It doesn't need me. I mean, I have my limited little life, and it shouldn't depend on the lone sort of programmer. So hopefully that will be out next year, and it'll be some fun. So, I mean, I was struck with the thought that, we all know the Monalisa because mainly because it's been around for so long and has survived so well. And the next, sort of our Monalisa, the work of art that's created in our lifetime, might not be a painting, and it might not be a sculpture, and it might actually be a piece of digital art. And I guess my question is will we be ready to preserve it? I'll leave you with that. Thank you.